Okay, so this is a weird one, man. In 1982, we get the album Shock Troops by the band Sparrer. It's widely talked about as their first record, but it's also not. It's their second record. But they had like their first record came out. What was it called? It was called True Grit was what they released it as in 19. I mean, excuse me, in '87 in the UK. But it was on Decca Records, I believe, in the '70s. Like it was
Hmm.
a bunch of like I guess early demo tracks. I don't actually know. I up until fairly recently, I knew it existed as True Grit, but I didn't realize it was put out before that in a different part of the world. I
Well,
just didn't know that.
yeah, and I think, and I may have this incorrectly, but it was one of those classic kind of like cash grabs, so to speak, by a band where the music they were making in the early 70s sounded a lot like this new cool thing called punk rock that was coming out. So I think they got together a lot of their music very quickly to distribute it, and it was like a flop. From what I understand, like
Oh wow.
it just I don't know if it was like I don't know the details of how it went, but I don't think it really panned out to like what they were trying to do with it. That's why it sort of I think doesn't really even get acknowledged as much as their opening release. Even though, like you said, by the time this album that we're talking about came out, they'd been a band like officially for like 12 years.
Yeah, they were a band for a long time. I think closer to 10. I believe that what I read was 72 was when they started. Could be wrong. So
Right, early
let me
70s. Yeah, it's
let me throw out another disclaimer because this is inevitably going to get cut into two videos. So I need people to understand this, dude. I am not an expert on any of this stuff. I'm just a fan of the band. We're talking mostly about this. Well, we're talking about the band due to the fact that we're covering Shock Troops, and I just saw them play in Vegas for the first time. So uh, nothing that I'm saying is meant to be anything other than incredibly respectful. I really love this band, but I was stuck in that. I've come to realize that when I was young, the reason I don't have all the like little bullet points and factoids on these bands is because when I was young, I just listened to the music and I didn't give a shit about like learning about the bands because I didn't have time. I was always working. When I was like 15 years old, I had a job and I had a lot going on and it was never like I had the time to go like talk and I didn't have a lot of friends. The punk scene wasn't real big down here. Like it was okay for a while, but it would come and go. It had swells and then it would dry up a little bit. My point is that we weren't sitting around talking about the history of these bands. We weren't sitting around talking about the lyrics in the albums. We were writing our own albums. We were playing our own shows. And I think that led me to have a different way about going about listening to albums and studying bands. I didn't do any of that. So I'm just now getting to it. I don't know. It's interesting, man. It's a weird thing to realize like, oh, I guess I should have known all this stuff a long time ago. Had I had a different I guess avenue of getting here. I might have known it all, but I would love to talk to Colin, the singer of Coxbar, one of these days, and just hear from him exactly the history of the band. I mean, I know a little bit about it. I know that they were a band from the early '70s. They broke up a couple of times. Shock Troops is their like actual coming out party.
mhm.
But every time you mention it as like their first album, people are like, no, it's their second album, and it's like, yeah, kind of, but it's kind of they're not. It's kind of their first album.
Yeah, and then they had like they had some songs in circulation around like the early punk era. They just didn't really have like a full blown album, and I don't think they were as consistent in that time period as they started picking up a lot of steam as the 80s and Oi and all that really starts to get cooking. Then they're sort of referenced back to, and they sort of pick up that following almost in reverse. And that's what sort of spurs on the 80s era of Shock Troops.
Well, yeah, in the early '80s, they started having songs of theirs show up on like Oi compilations and things. But you know, I think, as far as I understand it, they weren't even really like a punk band at first. They were more of like a
Well,
pub rock band,
yeah,
and they were like,
I think that's their actual genre. Really, is like their base genre is pub rock, and I mean the differences between pub rock, and punk rock, I think, are probably fairly small. Like we just talked about the New York punk basically being a club rock scene, and I think
right,
that this is kind of similar. I don't really know what pub rock is. I just assume that
dude.
this
I've
is
always felt like that. Like, okay, pub rock. I kind of can tell you when I hear it. I think I know what it is, I couldn't describe it to anybody. I'm like, fucking, I don't know, like in between AC/DC and bands I like, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I think of it as like a sloppy version. I don't know. I don't really know what it is exactly.
Oh.
Although, like, if you were to give me this blind, I don't know if I would say pub rock because nothing at the top. But if you ask me like what genre this, I think pub rock would be a good way to describe it. And I might even say that above like punk rock necessarily, although it very much fits into a punk rock framework. So I don't really know. I would like, someone in the comments maybe to describe how similar like this sort of core bass punk rock that like Sparrer does is with like that pub rock style.
So what I think it might be is more of just a straight rock and roll, because like when I hear Sparrer's songs, there's a lot of punk bands that I think fall into this. I'll be like listening to it and I go, man, this is some fucking good rock and roll. Like it's just good rock and roll. And I think that might be more of what it is. I think it's just like more of a gritty blue collar rock and roll sound that you get from guys that would play at a pub, I guess. I honestly don't know. I feel kind of dumb, but like I don't really care, I guess. But it's interesting.
Well, it's interesting because I kind of want to just know what it is, because it's a term that's thrown around a lot, right? And especially with the UK stuff, and you take it for granted. Their music though does kind of sound like a bunch of guys who are in a cover band who decided to write some originals. That is kind of the vibe that they have.
Oh, dude, their songs are so catchy. It's absurd how catchy their song. Like it's interesting to hear a bunch of like relatively like tough, not angry, but like tough, like hard-nosed dudes that are working class fellas sing songs that are just so fucking catchy, man. Like
the image of this style of music in your head, and then when you hear these songs, it completely is out of balance, isn't it?
Dude, I hear that all the time, but I hear it about Sparrer a lot. And I'm like, dude, it's great, isn't it? And they're like, no, I love this shit. Like, dude, even Charlie, my 10-year-old daughter, was like humming around this. She's like, I like this. What is this? I'm like, dude, this is where Dad's gonna go see it in Vegas. She's like, oh, this is cool. And then they played Shoot 'Em All, and she's like, okay, that's not so positive. We're talking about how all our songs were really positive. And then we got to that one. She's like, okay, that's not so positive. I'm like, but it's catchy. She's like, it really is. I'm like, dude, everything they do is just like, they're really good at writing melodies, like these really simple melodies, and then adding intricacies on top of that to make the song, you're unique in theirs. But Shock Troops is a record it'll fuck you up, man. If you're not ready for it, it'll blow your mind. Because look, here's the thing with music, and I think this goes on like all kinds, all styles, all genres. If you don't like the person's vocals, you're not gonna like the music.
Mm-hmm.
So if you like the vocals on this with this band, which I do, it's gonna fuck you up because it's gonna change your world, dude. It's rarely do you get an album that you go, oh yeah, this might be the best song on the album, and it's like song 1, and then by song 5, you're like, oh shit, that was 5 best songs on the album in a row. Okay, and then they just keep going. Like I don't say this very often, but this is like a perfect record, man. There's nothing about the record I would change. It's the perfect length. It's got the perfect sound. The audio quality is great. The engineering was done right. The mix is really good. The guitar playing is top notch. The lyric writing is A1. But everything about this record is awesome. And if I have to be honest, I've been a fan of Sparrer for 25 years or so. Most of my fandom was Shock Troops. I need to look. I listened to Forever whenever it came out. I don't even know what year that was though. Let's see here. I have the thing pulled up. Yeah, so Forever came out. That was only like 8 years ago. Let's see. Yeah, I liked Guilty as Charged when it came out. So that was like a mid-90s one. So I guess that was probably the first one that I heard because it was the new record. No, I think I heard Shock Troops first. And then Guilty as Charged was the most recent one. Two Monkeys is the one that I never heard much until recently. Here We Stand I liked because I was a Captain Oi fan. I was getting stuff from that label. But I mean, they've only got, for a band that's been out this many years, they've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 records if you include True Grit. That's including the one that came out last year.
I don't think they've been an extremely active band for all this time. They have a lot of years of inactivity, and so that kind of explains they're not quite as prolific of a band as other bands who have been around. as long. With that said, the limited amount of quantity, I think, helps keep their reputation intact, and that you don't have a bunch of dud albums. You don't have 20
Valid.
albums out there.
That's valid. Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, I think somebody could be a fan of this band for 30 years and still only really have heard Shock Troops. It's a classic album, dude.
I mean, it's not uncommon in punk though to like whether Operation Ivy or the Sex Pistols or of any genre. It's the most like I think one album genre that you can find that stuff that people will swear by.
That's true. I've had people that told me they were fans of Rancid and had never heard Out Come the Wolves. That happened like recently. I mean, dude, the kid was like 19 years old, bro. He's the only album he'd ever heard was their newest one and Indestructible.
Oh.
It fucked me up, bro. It had me on tilt for like an hour, but I couldn't figure it out. I was like begging this kid, like, you have to go listen to their old material, man. But like, I don't know, man. I guess I do have like imposter syndrome. Like I feel like I'm not good enough all the time. I talk on a video all the time, but dude, I've got anxiety and self-esteem issues like most people. So like, I don't think I'm cool. I know I make mistakes. I don't think I necessarily belong here. I'm always feeling like I don't do a good enough job, even though I put all my effort into it. The comments will fuck you up, dude. You get 100 nice ones. You get one dude that just shits all over you, and you're like, fuck, dude, maybe I shouldn't even be doing this. In reality, that dude's just an asshole. But this album really did affect me, man. And seeing them play live, oh, dude, I haven't gotten like teary-eyed emotional in a long time at a show, dude. That one had me all a mess. The festival set, it was really great. And I got close to feeling like that. I was like smiling real big, and my friend was hanging out with me, and I got close to being like, oh man, this is amazing. Not quite there, right? On Monday at that club show, it was shoulder to shoulder in that place, dude. You couldn't move. It was so packed. They were telling people, if you go outside, you can't come back inside. Like, you go smoke a cigarette, you staying outside. And I think they oversold the venue by a lot. Like, I mean, I don't know that I've ever seen a show that was like a club that packed. It was. I thought, man, I hope this doesn't have like a fire, because if we do, it's incredibly dangerous. But yeah, dude, it was one of the most beautiful experiences I've ever had at a punk show. Somebody told me before I went, hey, dude, you've never seen Sparrer? And I went, no. They're like, oh, dude, it's something else, because every song is like a sing-along. And I wasn't sure how accurate that statement was. And then they started playing, and every fucking song, the crowd was just like singing along, and there's just fists in the air the whole time. Man, it was beautiful, dude. It's exactly what punk rock is about, man. Every song was a banger. And then, I mean, they played like 80% of Shock Troops, dude. It was like, they played like, it was a beautiful experience, man. It was a transformative show. Fuck, dude. I hope they see this video and go, shit, I do want to talk to that guy, because I'm telling you, man, it was one of the greatest experiences of my whole life, dude. It was well worth the travel, the wait. It was worth it, man. These are the kind of things that you need, this stuff in your life. We've both had them, different times and places, different bands, but we've both had these experiences. But I don't think well, I guess everybody that listens to music of any kind gets this feeling at some point in their life. I hope so. But yeah, man. How much have you listened to the record?
So I knew a few of these songs. I had never gone in and listened to the record from beginning to end. I knew quite a bit of these songs, but it just wasn't one that I had ever sat down to actually do that with. In my mind, was Lars ever in this band, or did he tour with them?
No. So, man, I'm gonna get this wrong and be fucking roasted. But if I'm not mistaken, Sparrer hit 40 years the same time Rancid hit 20. And I think they did like 4 or 5 shows together, celebrating like their anniversaries together. And maybe Lars had some production stuff. He played with
in the UK subs. So maybe I'm just twisting those. Like in my mind for years,
no, but dude,
this was the band that Lars is in.
Tim and Lars have both worn Sparrer shirts many times. So like,
I would say my familiarity with them, that's where it really started, is with the Rancid guys, because they are like such big proponents of this band.
So there are 2 key moments that like introduced me to this band, and they both are from the same person. This girl that I was friends with back in the day, she was like your prototypical like attractive punk girl. All right, big mohawk, crazy sexy clothes. So anything that she was into, all the guys were like, "What does she like? I like that too." And she always wore, and I mean, I was young, dude. Like this is just platonic friendship with her, right? She always had this like tank top on. It was a yellow. I'm pretty positive it was no, it was a white shirt with red print, not yellow shirt. It was a white shirt with red print, but it was a tank top, and it just had the Coxbar logo with the wings. And actually, I think we're saying it way wrong. So I talked to Colin McFowle's daughter, Hannah. Shout out Hannah. She was super sweet. I'm pretty sure it's Sparrer, like Coxbarra, and we just don't have the right accent to say it right at all. But I've been trying it all day. Coxbarra. I think that's how you're supposed to say it. But I think with an American accent, you just it's almost like you have to like make yourself say it that way.
Those hard R's that we do.
Yeah, and I'm like, it's Sparrer. I believe. I might be wrong about that, but I'm trying to pronounce it correctly just out of respect for the band. But this girl's wearing this shirt, and I asked her, like, what's up with this shirt? I didn't know it was even a band. I just thought, honestly, with the first word being cock, me being like 17, I was like, it must be a dick joke. Whatever. She's like, oh, it's a punk band. And so I naturally went to find out about this punk band. And she liked a bunch of like street punk, dude. She had like a big mohawk and shit. And like she was into like a Global Threat and shit. Like she liked real street punk music. And so I really thought it was going to be kind of like that kind of music. And so, you know, it's funny. I think I have to credit her with me even liking this band because all these other bands, I had the same kind of thing. I thought they were going to be really fast punk. I listened to it and I didn't like it. That goes for the Clash. That went for the Damned. A lot of bands, right? But I think it's because she liked them, I was giving them more of a try because when I first heard it, I was like, oh, that's not what I thought I was going to get. And then also, man, look, if you can make it through one song, you'll realize very quickly, like, oh, these guys can write a melody. And I like catchy music. So like I guess there's a combination of those two things. But I was getting interested in them. And then that same girl, like soon after, she's like, we're talking about music, whatever. And she's like, oh, what'd you think about Coxbarra? And I was like, you know, I like it okay. And she's like, your boys in Rancid love this shit. And I think that was what made me go, oh, really? And then I started noticing it on their clothing and pictures and things. And I took a liking to it after that. But you know, I mean, you get where you get, how you get there. We're all frauds, dude. We're all posers, man. Everybody, we're all just. You can tell I'm self-conscious even talking about this shit, bro. It's weird. It's weird.
Well, yeah. Like even I had to say, like, I've never actually popped this in. Like, I never popped this into this CD player. Like, I knew of it and I knew some of these songs. Like, I've never actually sat down and really done that.
It surprises me, yet at the same time it doesn't, because I was a little surprised that you had listened to the damn stuff, but I guess. I know you mostly were in a like late 90s, early 2000s wheelhouse with like your core stuff, right? Like Epitaph Fat, you know, Hellcat. So like I'm only like one rung below that. Like, you know, I like the Casualties of Global Threat, but like there's a lot of, you know, Grimple, Bay Area stuff, but we both like that stuff to a certain degree. Dude, I'm not. This is why I always say I'm not an expert, dude. I'm not, man. I don't know every band that ever existed, dude. It's impossible to do that.
Well, like I've learned that talking to you is I had never really met a lot of like the Oi fans and stuff like that. Like to me, that's always been sort of the music that the Rancid guys listen to. Like I never had a lot of contemporary people who were really into those bands, other than like, you know, like, oh, From Casuals is coming, and you know, everyone wants to go see, you know what I mean? So that's always been
because it has
like
Lars in it, right?
To that kind, it's like that, and explaining to people that these are skinheads and not Nazis and all that kind of, like, it seems like that's like a lot of where that has sort of been for me, and like I've seen with you more of an exploration of the music itself and the deeper dives into the specifics. I think like maybe like how some people have, like, they know about all these old ska bands, but they never actually listened to any single one of them. That's kind of how I feel with the Oi stuff in general.
Dude, even I felt like that for a long while. Maybe not in the last few years, but like, you know, 10 years ago, I definitely felt like that. Because I knew a bunch of the bands, but I only knew one or two songs from most of them. I had the Captain Oi compilation. You know, I didn't have much else other than that. But like as I get older, this is the music that really resonates with me because the topics have switched. I don't have as much in common with, you know, angry 20-year-olds as I do a guy that's trying to make his mortgage payment. You know what I'm saying? And since that's the case, these lyrics, that's the big divide between Oi like punk, if you want to call it. They're one and the same, and they're also very different. And I think that's the big divide, though, is that you have one genre that really is focused on like youth movements and political stuff, yada yada, right? Then you also have one that is firmly planted in like I don't know how to say it, dude. Like just like being an adult, like the trials and tribulations of a working class person that doesn't have a lot of money.
Class politics, you might say. Yeah,
class politics is a great way to say it, bro. You're way better at just talking than I am. But yeah, I mean, I think that's the big divide. Is you have one group that's more politically motivated. You have one that's just everyday life, and I think that they both mix great, and they make great tours together. They also have great split albums, and you have bands that have a little bit of both. I mean, I think most punk bands have a little bit of that in there, and most oi bands have a little of that in there. But I think by and large, that's where they kind of sit. And then obviously the aesthetics are different. But I was listening to a guy the other day talking about skinheads can't be racist because you wouldn't have skinhead culture without Jamaica. And I was like, fuck, that's a great way to put that, because it's so true. Because the original skinhead music is not oi music; it is reggae, it's ska, and a lot of folks don't know that, and they certainly don't know where that music comes from.
It's a complete side note, but there's a lot of like academic scholarship that notes that how much punk rock is another like what do you call it, like diversion of a lot of points of Black culture that are pulled into like this transformed culture. And I think a lot of it has to do with like the UK scenes and a lot of these guys and a lot of that kind of stuff. And there's a lot of that we don't think of as much in America, because we think of punk as, again, just like the Beach Boys on crack, and we don't really analyze it to that greater, the way we do with like general rock and roll, where we kind of acknowledge like, yeah, Elvis Presley is Black music taken to a wide audience. Like that's really easy for us to understand in that kind of way. There's a lot of elements of punk and the history of punk that have similar connection points of blues and R&B and all that kind of stuff that we don't quite always think about as much as explicitly.
Yeah, I think it depends on the person. I've always kind of considered it, and I don't really put it as like, oh, it comes from a like Black music, more so than it's a class thing, like you said a minute ago. It's always been about class. Punk rock and politics, they're not really about black or white. They're not really about left or right. They're really about money. So either poor or you're not poor. And it just happens that a lot of the Black communities are below the poverty line. There's a lot of communities of all shapes, sizes, colors that are below the poverty line. And I think that's what rock and roll has going through its veins, man. Rock and roll, the blues, and jazz, all that stuff is punk rock. It's all about class, and this music is for working class people. Every song on this album is for working class people. It's a beautiful record, man. It's a fucking beautiful record. I love it, dude. It's like, so Coxbar over the years have gone from being like a band I really loved to a top 5 for me. And I don't say that lightly, because my top 5 rarely changes, like rarely, but it's gotten to where they're probably number 4 on my list, like all time, full stop. Like they're just, even, what made them move up the list is that once I listened to all their other records in addition to Shock Troops, like over and over and over, I was like, holy shit, their like entire discography is like this. It's not like they have a great album and then a bunch of other pretty good albums. No, dude, like every album is like this. Even their latest one, Hand on Heart, it's the same quality of music. It's kind of wild, dude, honestly, like how they keep writing these really great. But I mean, these dudes have been friends since they were little kids. Like the band has been friends, as far as I understand it, since they were like 11 or 12 years old, maybe younger. And I mean, when you have people that you've known your whole life, if I went and got my like 4 oldest friends and started a band, I guarantee you we would write some really important music
and have like chemistry that you could really build off of. And
yeah, absolutely.
There is a certain simplicity to this music, though, that I think would really lend itself to, again, like 4 guys who have just known each other forever that can come up with this. And I think you've said it several times, the genius is in the melody and like the catchiness, the kind of pop sensibilities that this ends up having to it. With the limited instruments of a garage band, though, that's what makes it very, very impressive. It is just bass guitar and drums doing all of this.
that might be where the pub rock thing comes into play,
Mm-hmm.
because it does sound like a dudes that are at a jam place, like hanging out playing music,
Mm-hmm.
and like they're very competent with their instruments. And that includes Colin with his singing. I
Mm-hmm.
just watched them play twice, dude. That guy knows how to sing. Uh, whether
It's
you like his
something,
voice or not, that's between every person. That's up to them. But like, I love it.
but he has that quality that some bands have, where it's almost because it's a soft-spoken way of vocals, it causes you to listen. You sort of like you pay attention because it's not bah, 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 in your face. You know that
Yeah.
he's kind of speaking and he's singing. And he's got that accent that makes it real like proper sound, at least to our ears. And so it does sort of, you sort of perk up and listen. And then, but then, like you said, though, it's mixed really well. The instrumentation is done really well to fit the songs. Those guitar leads are like perfect and never too pitchy for
Right?
what they're
Isn't
doing.
that, dude? Honestly, I kept listening to it. Like, I've heard the record a lot of times, so it was almost like, okay, I need to go make sure I sit down and listen to it again to refresh my memory. And I'm thinking, like, if you'd have asked me, I don't know, 3 weeks ago, hey man, how much guitar work is in these Coxbar records? I'd be like, I don't know, maybe a little. No, man, there's a lot. It's just so well done, and it's so like seamless that you don't. It's not like, oh, and then there's this like insane 3-minute guitar solo. That's not what they're doing. But they have like really good licks and really good leads all throughout their songs.
Yeah, it doesn't dominate the music, but it's kind of like if you go listen back like 1950s music when there's a really good guitarist in there and
Right.
they're doing a lot of that stuff to really accent the entirety of the song. There's a lot of that here. It sounds very tight. Like like obviously everything on record sounds tight when you put it on record, but like something about this kind of comes through as a certain cohesiveness. Maybe because it's the sound where it's almost some of the instruments are non-distinctive from each other because it just sounds like a piece of music the way good music is supposed to.
Well, when you hear this album, you can hear the influences they had on bands like Rancid that you
Mm-hmm.
didn't know, that you're like, oh, I didn't know that this song really clearly influenced them. And there's a lot of that throughout this record. You can hear like, especially like Let's Go era Rancid, and then also like later Rancid. You can hear a lot of Coxbar, especially their last like 3 albums. They've got a lot of that very simple rock and roll stuff going on there in their albums.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, man, I think this is a band that needs to be cherished, and uh, I'm very grateful I got to see him play. That was my whole reason for going, was
Mm-hmm.
to go see Coxbar. I would have went if that was the only band I was going to see. I still would have went. Yeah, it was
They
awesome.
feel like a piece of, even though they're not that notable, they really feel like a piece of rock history, though, don't they? They feel like
I think they are that notable though,
yeah,
because like maybe it's because they're not this famous huge band. But go watch some of the footage from their live shows. They always were packed, dude. And I think, what's old buddy that managed the Sex Pistols names again?
Malcolm McLaren.
Malcolm McLaren.
Yeah,
If I'm not mistaken, he was supposed to, or they was in talks to manage
yeah.
Coxbar at some
I think he
point.
scouted them or something like that.
So I mean, like that tells you a lot. And what the reasons were he didn't do it, I don't know. Maybe they didn't want him to. I have no idea. But yeah, they're like this band that sits in this weird place. They're like legendary, but they're also not like rock stars.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that kept them grounded, and I think it kept them putting on good quality shows, kept them bringing good quality albums, and appreciating their fan base, which I don't know, man. I personally like that better, but it's who knows. They may have been like, "Fuck that! I want 20 million," and you can't blame them. But
Mm-hmm.
I can't imagine them saying that. I feel like they probably are pretty appreciative of their career.
Yeah, and I think a lot of genres of music have those kind of like cornerstone bands that are just that will
Yes,
go that people will say like, oh yeah, I saw them 30 years into their career and they were amazing and they had a packed house and maybe people weren't aware of it and they hold that. But I mean, you think about even what they did recently, being a top headliner on an American show like that. I know that audience would be more catered to them, but that still really shows the weight of both the bands we talked about today and how much they still really can kind of carry and kind of command, because those Cockspire sets, like you said, there was big buzz about that though on social
man,
media and everything when that was happening as just an event.
it was amazing, dude. And I also live streamed the club show. I was
Mm-hmm.
working my ass off, dude. I don't think people really understand what it is that I go through when I do this shit, but I don't do that for all of them. But that was a special one, and I wanted people to be able to witness it with me. And everybody that watched it, dude, I appreciate it. It was a lot of work, and it was, kind of a hectic filming, but it just was one of these moments I'll never forget, dude. You know what's funny is they also have their own sound. Coxbar has a sound that's not. So somebody told me something the other day that while I did argue with them, I also understand their point. They were like, Coxbar is not an Oi band. And I was like, well, no, they're not. They are the Oi band. Like, I feel like they're like almost the originators of a sound, but it's just like punk. Oi, uh, it evolved and it changed a little bit. It doesn't sound the way that it sounded in the early 80s now. Well, neither does punk. So like I do think that they are a cornerstone or a foundational, whatever you want to call it. They're a band that's incredibly important to not only punk but Oi music. And these dudes started as one thing and they had the resilience to push through it and find what they wanted to do. I don't understand why anybody would have an issue with that. I think it's pretty admirable to start a band and just be like, yeah, we just want to play rock and roll. And then later on, you find out like, oh, we like this kind of rock and roll. And then to actually do that, stick with it, and then become like legendary band, that's fucking wild to me, man.
There's all these bands that it's funny like that. I'm sure they know, but like in the whole history of the world, like these bands that are so influential that maybe your next door neighbor has never heard of, or these people have never heard of. And I've always wondered what that's like to have that sort of level of like fame and infamy to you, where it's the most, you're more famous than rich, you're more known and notable. But like at the same time, like if at least in America, these guys going down the street, they could go to the store, no one would bother them, no one would have that thing. But like they hold such power and weight. I'm always fascinated by that level of like achievement in life.
I kind of think that's the best, that's the perfect. If I was gonna be in a band or something, and I was like, okay, what's the level of known that I want to be? I want to be able to go to the grocery store and not be bothered, but I also want to be like every once in a while, some dude loses his shit and goes, "Oh my god, you're the so and so dude." You know what I'm saying? Like, "Oh, you're the singer of this band," and it's like, okay, like in the right spot, this dude's probably mobbed by people, but like everyday life.
I've always thought being punk rock famous was like the right amount of famous that's the amount of famous people actually want, like when they want to be famous.
Almost certainly.
Yeah, and it's exactly like you said, where like and you see it like again on Twitter or something where you'll see like someone's on a bus with like legendary punk rock musician and they're just there like in the corner, like that guy sold a bazillion records that collab with all these people and they're just kind of there, but they can kind of be with that nondescript way, the way that even like a pop star from the 80s probably can't, because they would just be so dang recognizable.
Dude, no, there's no way that a pop star from the 80s, bro, it would be hell.
Now what's got to be bad is if you're like this level of fame and you still are just recognized all over the place, so you don't even get that personal peace of mind, but you don't really get to monetize it to the same level. That might be the worst of both worlds. But that's like the people I think in modern times that get famous for like dumb stuff on the internet but have no skills. So then there's nothing really to sell after you just sort of know who they are and know that they're awful or whatever.
Dude,
I don't know why I'm comparing Coxbar to these influencers, but
is Paul Simon, is how do you say his last name? Simonon
from the Clash?
Simonon? Yeah. He's still alive, right? I think so. I thought I saw him
passed away, but
so okay, so my reason for asking that is because I saw a video the other day and I didn't know if it was like a new video or an old video, but I'm pretty sure it was him. And he walked up on these two kids playing a Clash song, like busking, playing a Clash song. And he started singing the song with them, right? And I think the kids recognized him, but nobody else on the street did. And I thought, and that's exactly what we're talking about. And I was like, oh shit, that's exactly the kind of famous that would be awesome. Is that these two kids are like, oh my God, it's Paul Simonon. How do you say it? Simonon?
So I don't know, because Joe Strummer would say like Simone or something like that, but I don't think that's how you would say it.
Well, sure. Paul, then, okay, no disrespect. I just pronounce things terribly all the time. Anyways, those kids are like, dude, look who we're talking to right now. And then everybody else is just walking by, not realizing that if you played some songs that he's written, you would go, oh, I know this song. Like most people would know at least one Clash song.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but, that is kind of ideal because people are still enjoying your art and getting getting the feeling off of the thing you made, but they don't necessarily have to know your name or what you're doing or what you're up to.
Man, life is fucking weird, isn't it? Some of this, all this stuff is so strange. I'm not gonna even like fuck around, dude. This is a 10 for me. Like this album is one of my favorite records of all time. I'd say I don't know where it would actually rank, but it would be in my top 10, probably top 5. Oh man, if I had to sit down and actually make a top 10 punk rock records list, that's harder to do because like I could just put all of Rancid's albums on there and I wouldn't be too mad about it. But like, whew, I think we should try to do that soon. Top 10 punk albums.
That'll be a hard one, but that's a fun challenge.
You want to try to tackle that in a couple weeks?
Yeah.
Let's do that. That's kind of a little bit different. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's do that then, and we'll see when I bring this album up again because I'm sure it's going to be on there.
Because I'm always updating this list in my head, but when I'm actually forced to say it, like there's only 10 slots. What are you gonna?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like, wow, that's a man. 10 albums. How am I going to tackle this? This will be fun. This will be real fun because it's weird because a band that might be in your top 5 may not have a top 5 album, but a band that's not in your top 5 may have an album that's there. Oh, that's sketchy. Son of a bitch. I think I might have just put myself in a hole.
Well, not every band is a great album band. Yeah, that's the truth.
That's,
I mean,
that's very true. Very, very true.
Yeah.
Dude. Man, I feel like we had a pretty good conversation on these albums. I hope people don't disagree. I'm very self-conscious right now. They fucking roasted me in the comments about the other band, and I totally didn't think they were going to. But whatever, man. Ultimately, I don't really care, but I get in my head a little bit sometimes. If I cared a lot, I wouldn't put the videos up, would I?
Yeah, you wouldn't be on the internet if you cared that much.
Bro, if I cared that much, I certainly wouldn't have a YouTube channel because, well, I tell you, it's the wild, wild west in this place. Hey, to all the super punkers out there, man, go get them. Good for you, buddy. Good for you. I'll never be as punk as you, and I don't want to. I like to smell good. Bro, people are weird.
Maybe you should go like reverse and go like as you get into like your 50s and stuff and start becoming like more of a hardcore punk.
Just like get all crusty and gross, quit showering and shit. Grow out some dreadlocks that are all thin because my hair's all thin.
But like no one can claim it's a phase because like clearly you've reached full maturity, you know?
Right? Dude, it's funny, man. I think that look, dude, here's my actual critique of that stuff is that people are passionate, man, and they like this is why it doesn't really bother me after about a minute. Is because really all it is people are passionate. If that same person that was mad at me in the comments met me in real life and talked to me about this for even 5 minutes, they would understand me immediately and they wouldn't have an issue with me. And I know that. Even if they don't want to admit it, I know that. So it doesn't really bother me, but it does sting a little bit because I think like, man, this is a community, dude. Why are we doing this to each other? But, you know, I shit on my friends all the time. So what am I talking about? Hell yeah, dude. A couple of weeks we'll do top 10 punk albums list. That's we got to try to see if I can get you and Nitty on a show together during the summer.
Yeah, we need like a panel show of all of us doing something ridiculous.
Yeah. How annoying can we be? I think we get there, dude. Pretty annoying.
I've never watched one of your guys' shows all the way through. It's like I always see your topics. I think that's really cool, but I think I have like this jilted, like, I don't like to see what the other person kind of thing that I got going on.
Yeah,
it makes no sense. I got no problem with the guy, and I like your guys' topics. You guys are usually talking about albums I like, but I'm just always like, oh yeah, that's,
dude. I wonder if he does the same thing. I bet he does.
He's probably much less weird about these things. He's probably much.
I don't know, maybe, dude.
It's nothing on him. It's just like, oh yeah, that's the other guy that he does that's the other non-famous person he does podcasts with.
Right. Well, right. I think. I mean. If every time you bring up the wrestling thing, I'm always like, oh, I forgot he does that, and I'm like, man, we should do more stuff. And I'm like, it's fucking stupid. It's good the way it is. Like, it's the same feeling. I think I'm like, I don't know if jealousy is the right word, but it's like a little bit of resentment, maybe. No, jealousy is probably the better word. It's like, man, like, oh man, and I feel like there are albums that I tell Nitty I want to cover that I know I'm like, fuck, dude, I should ask Rob if he wants to cover this too, and like. I don't care. I'll talk about it with 2 different people. It don't matter to me. And, you know, it does take a little bit of speaking up sometimes. Maybe I don't know. If you see something you really like, just tell me. I'll do a part 2. I don't care. Like it doesn't bother me at all.
I can't think of any specific. Well, other than you guys have done AFI, Lagwagon, and Pennywise, I'm like, oh come on, dude. Those are
those
ours.
Like your favorites. Like yes. The reason some of this stuff, man. It's like spur of the moment. I'm terrible about like planning this out like 6 months or so. But I'll be like, oh, that happened. Hey, we should just do this. That's how.
Yeah, you and I have like 2 years now of having to keep track of what we talked about before.
Dude, I have already gone back and been like, oh, I'm gonna see if Rob wants to cover this, and then I'll like maybe an hour go by. I'm like, wait a minute, and I'll go back and look. Son of a bitch, we already talked about that. But you know,
I know there's some episodes I hope get lost because I just like. I'm remembering like my takes from a certain day or something. I'm like,
Well,
hope that one.
that's the beauty of doing this, is that my opinion changes at least a little bit fairly often.
Mhm.
My top 10 punk bands right now, outside of like 1 through 4, actually it is different, because I say like in the last 5 years, maybe 2 years, Coxbar's moved from like 8, 9, or 10 all the way up to like 4. So like my list has changed. So and also you discover new kinds of music. Like if I was to tell you my top 50 albums of the last 2 years, it would blow your mind, because it would be nothing. It would have almost nothing to do with bands that we love. Like
Mhm.
it might include that Rancid album, and it might include that Alkaline Trio album. Other than that, it would be all shit that we didn't know 2 years ago. So, you know, it's a weird thing, man. I love this shit, bro. I could talk about it all day, every day, which is why I do. Yeah, I'm trying to do some shorts now. I'm gonna start doing shorts, because I think I have an idea, a way to do them that is pretty easy.
Mhm.
Just show a record off every day. I can make a 30-second video. I'm trying to like make sure I stay on top of like what I'm doing, man. If this is going to be my job, which obviously it is at this point, I need to make sure I can and just every little opportunity that I take it and do it right. We'll see how it goes.
We need something on YouTube. Like I've seen like stuff on TikTok that's similar to like the content you do that's in that short format, but I haven't seen anything on like YouTube Shorts that really has that space covered.
You talk about like showing a record off and be like, hey, yeah, this record is from like, how do you think I should approach it?
Yeah, well, and that's what I've always struggled with, trying to think of that, is how do you get like this sort of like album review stuff into like a bite-sized like you're saying, featuring. I don't know. You just have to pick the right criteria. You know what I mean? Like this is really I would think.
So what I was thinking, nobody's watching this shit right now. So what I was thinking was, I always get paranoid. It doesn't matter, dude. I'm not gonna have any original ideas. Nobody does. I was thinking of showing an LP, maybe like holding it up. It's like a 2-second shot of me holding it, and then it cuts to it playing on the turntable,
Mhm.
and then while it's playing, a song's playing, and then on the screen in text, it's like whatever album, whatever year, top 3 songs. Dot 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 dot. That's the short. That way it could be like 20 to 30 seconds. From all the little bit of research that I've done, 30 seconds and lower, or like a minute 5 and longer. Like 30 to 65-second window is terrible for some reason. I don't really understand why, but I do
Maybe
know that
people kind of swipe off it if it's.
I guess so, man.
Yeah.
I did a 7-second video the other day and it got like 35,000 views. So like, I get it. They need to be short, but like fucking A. And it was an awesome video too, because it was a guy jumping off a turnbuckle. It was a singer of Haywire doing a flip into the crowd. It was badass, dude. I was so happy that I filmed that. And I got really lucky because I almost left, but my friend Gabe Wells, shout out Gabe Wells, singer of Pride Kills, he basically talked me into staying. He's like, dude, you don't want to miss this show. It's in a crazy venue, and it's gonna be one of those shows we're talking about for years. And I was like, man, it's fucking hot in there, because it was in a metal building, and it was like 500 something people, no windows, no AC, no fan, no doors open. It was just a big giant box, and it was a wrestling ring, and they were playing on that. Every single fucking band member from almost every band had their shirt off, dude. It was so fucking hot, that place. And I just powered through it and filmed it. And I was standing by the door so I could get like a little breeze, but it was miserable, dude. I don't know how the kids were in that mosh pit. I just don't. I mean,
having the time of their lives.
Yeah, dude. Shout out to the kids, man. Shout out to the fucking kids, bro. Hell yeah. This is a good talk, man. I missed you, bro. It's been a while.
Yeah, it's been almost a month.
That's ridiculous. We'll try to do one in like 2 weeks from now with the top 10. That'll be a good time, brother. Well, anything you want to talk about before we get out of here?
No.
Hey, how's your boy doing?
Doing better. Had a few appointments last week, and everything was still in the positive. We get the big surgery next month. Or not big, but the next one. So
cool, man. I'm glad I thought to ask. I think about it randomly, and it'll be like 10:30. I'm not gonna text this man at 10:30. How's your kid? But awesome, man. Well, if you need anything from me, holler at me. Everybody, thank you so much for hanging out with us. We appreciate it. We'll be back with another episode of the Punk Rock Review podcast. Top 10 punk albums, I guess, for us. This is gonna be a fucking awesome episode, honestly. It'll be fun because I bet our lists are gonna be pretty different, with the exception of maybe two, maybe 3.
Except for the number 1.
That's what I'm thinking. I think other than that, it's gonna be pretty different, I would imagine. But awesome, man. All right, Rob. Talk to you soon, bud.
Later.
All right, later, everybody.